Chapter 20. Shadow Work. Shadow work is the path of the heart warrior. Carl Jung. It was in early 2019 that, broken and barley bound, I left the UK. I had sold or given away everything I owned, and with just 2 bags and a beagle, after an arduous road trip across Java, I arrived at a seaside town on Bali's east coast, with little inkling of what lay ahead. I'd gravitated to the island of the gods with no real plan whatsoever. No strategy, mentor, family, friends, or clue about how I would spend my days. Nevertheless, I was instinctively cognizant of where the real work should begin, and so I initiated what I later learned was to be my shadow work. While not exclusive to the island, an expression known as spiritual bypassing regularly makes its rounds in Bali. Introduced by the Buddhist psychotherapist John Welwood, the term is defined as using spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep personal, emotional, unfinished business, to shore up a shaky sense of self, or to belittle basic needs, feelings, and developmental tasks. When spiritually bypassing, we use such practices to cover up our emotional and psychological shortcomings, a spiritualized smokescreen for us and others. We dive into new techniques, skipping the critical healing phase known as shadow work. So what is it? Well, it derives from another Jungian concept, shadow self, essentially getting to grips with the parts of our personality that we reject out of fear or shame. Whether we acknowledge it or not, we all have a shadow, and the self-reflective work necessary is a deep dive into one's shadow self. The purpose is to fully see and know it, to sit with the searing pain of who that self is and has been, and to ultimately embrace it as a welcome and most beloved part of us. Honestly, it's no fun. In hindsight, I dove into my shadow work in 2 tranches. The first was during the previously discussed therapy sessions, commencing shortly after my mum's death in 2014. The second was after my inaugural introduction to plant medicines, including ayahuasca and wachuma, San Pedro, in February 2019. Next was some early work with meditation and yoga. All that to say that in linear terms, having leapt into other practices first, I may have been guilty of a little spiritual bypassing too. However, if it started out that way, my spiritual cum metaphysical training quickly led me to a place where, embracing solitude, I began the painful process of self-reflection. Observing past behaviour honestly, I eventually accepted co-responsibility for all of it. Now there was no one left to lie to other than myself. Perhaps it was the meditation or the plant medicine. Maybe it was the self-prescribed removal from my former toxic environments. Using this new mindset, I deliberately situated myself in a place where silence came far easier. And so I began surfing tsunami after tsunami of melting hot lava-like truth in the form of memories I'd previously worked hard to repress. Perhaps I was lucky. Along an extended dark road, I altered my course, embracing the work with an overwhelming desire to change because there was frankly no other option. Besides, having learned a great deal about the dark, I felt compelled to acknowledge its teachings about the promise of the altogether more appealing light. My shadow work process involved spending weeks and months revisiting and reflecting while simultaneously reading tomes of psychological and spiritual teachings. This enriched and transformed how I viewed my darkness. With time on my hands, I audited many of my life's darker moments. This was no longer through the traditional lens of masochism or self-pity. It was with an emerging belief that I could dislodge the pain of those memories, moving that stuck emotion. The practice I used, and a practical utility, was to place all my attention and energy on those memories, one by one, safe in the knowledge that they no longer had the power to hurt me. In fact, they would shift in shape, size, and potency as I observed them with love and without judgment. While an ancient practice amongst meditators, this idea also belongs to quantum mechanics, The so-called observer effect is the disturbance created in a system through observation. In physics, instruments measuring something often alter the results. Not to get too scientific, but one example is how the observer effect occurs during the double slit experiment, demonstrating that light and matter can display classic and defined waves and particles. What does that mean? Don't worry about it. The point is that during such experiments, physicists have discovered that their observation of quantum phenomena can change the measured results. In layman's terms, we direct energy wherever we place our single-pointed attention. Thus, observing a situation or phenomenon, in this case a memory's latent energy, changes it because everything in this world is impermanent. I paralleled my newfound mental nourishment with regular physical and spiritual practice, including yoga, breath work, sound healing, and eating clean. And then there was sleep, 8 to 10 hours every night. Lest I forget, the most powerful ally I introduced to my daily routine was one of the most profound teachers of them all. Silence. We'll talk about this more later on. Or maybe not. Maybe I should just remain silent. In a matter of months, I immersed myself in what I eventually came to call the work. My self-made program disguised to go inward and heal. And so it was, in Bali of all places, that I did the most challenging work I've ever done. Was it hard? Yes, it was. Was it worth it? Would I recommend it? Unequivocally. It changed my life. Having finally put my demons to bed, I paved the way to unlearn my conditioned behavioural traits, eventually learning for the first time how to forgive, love, and accept myself for who I am. I said goodbye to the darkness, and I welcomed the light. More accurately, I embraced a future where the two can live happily and healthily ever after. Now then, there are some words to highlight as we tread carefully around the minefield of shadow work. The first is repressed. The second is bullshit. Repressed. There are 3 sides to every story: my version, your version, and the truth. One could elaborate by saying there is no truth other than all that is, but let's just settle on the third truth being defined in this case as the universe's non-dualistic perspective of the event. All truths. So my memory of the events where I, shall we say, neglected to practice right speech, thought, or action might well have been corrected by my ego, aka monkey, to protect myself. Or, as my narcissistic brain switched into Machiavellian strategy mode, perhaps we, monkey and me, chose to tell ourselves a different version of the story that painted us in a somewhat better light. Which, if you think about it, is another form of self-protection and control. So our recollection of how we've conducted ourselves in the past can be repressed. We subconsciously push memories far away from our awareness. On the other hand, we can suppress our memory of an event. In such cases, we deliberately try to forget what we said or did. We proactively shove painful or shameful memories into a mental box, subsequently tossing them onto a cerebral conveyor belt, transporting the painful ponderings for long-term storage. Newsflash: such energy remains in the body and mind, festering, giving off an unpleasant smell, and eventually making its presence known to all and sundry. Oftentimes, and regrettably, this materialises as a breakdown, the popping of one's lid, or as disease. It's dis-ease, after all. Naturally, we believe we'll never see it again, but that's rarely the case. Sharing the resilience of the Fast and Furious movie franchise, it shall thus return. Bullshit. And what about bullshit? Well, a crucial part of shadow work is to own your bullshit. To fully embody the process is to wholeheartedly accept that you've been a bit of a dick. There's no skirting around it. No, well, I might have done this, or there's a chance I did that, or it's conceivable that I said this, but Nope, none of that. Steps 8 and 9 of the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 steps, are referred to as making amends. Written in the past tense, they read like this. Step 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Take heed of the last line of step 9. If there's an outside chance that reaching out might cause more harm than good, then don't do it. Let those sleeping dogs lie. Assuming you continue, then exercise humility and honesty. It is imperative to own one's bullshit. An apology with mitigation is an excuse. For those of you brave enough to reach out to the people you've hurt, I salute you. Having done this many times, it was often more painful than rewarding. My amends were met with a bittersweet combination of fuck yourself, I'm not interested, I'll never forgive you, have you had dental work? And you've honestly no reason to apologise, Martin, but thanks. Perhaps the worst response is total silence, but we must accept it all the same. Acknowledging our bullshit and the co-created drama we birthed and crafted is tough work. Expressing heartfelt remorse is challenging too. Expecting nothing in return, while instead fully embodying the true definition of forgiveness, is a skill reserved for Jedis. All this and more lie ahead in the Shadow Work Fun Palace. Actually, now's as good a place as any to share an excerpt from Russell Brand's most excellent Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions. Much of his somewhat salty and down-to-earth version of the 12 steps could be well applied to anyone interested in the work, addictive tendencies or not. They read like this. 1. Are you a bit fucked? 2. Could you not be fucked? 3. Are you, on your own, going to unfuck yourself? 4. Write down all the things that are fucking you up or have ever fucked you up, and don't lie or leave anything out. 5. Honestly tell someone trustworthy about how fucked you are. 6. Well, that's revealed a lot of fucked up patterns. Do you want to stop it? Seriously. 7. Are you willing to live in a new way that's not all about you and your previous fucked up stuff? You have to. 8. Prepare to apologise to everyone for everything affected by your being so fucked up. 9. Now apologise, unless that would make things worse. 10. Watch out for fucked up thinking and behaviour and be honest when it happens. 11. Stay connected to your new perspective. 12. Look at life less selfishly. Be nice to everyone. Help people if you can. As sweary as some may find this list, Russell's fun and forthright tone deserves appreciation. Can you see how they could apply to all humans rather than just self-professed addicts? How would it be if we all did this work? A shadow work starter for 10. 1. Sit with your darkness. Feel the pain until it transmutes. 2. Master your emotional responses so you are no longer easily triggered. 3. Free from shame or judgment, acknowledge your negative behavioural emotions. 4. Free from guilt or judgment, recognise your negative behavioural traits. 5. Master assertiveness minus rudeness. 6. Learn to appreciate others' truths. 7. Observe and accept yourself. Laugh at yourself. 8. Observe and avoid passive aggression. 9. Arm wrestle adversity. Seek out and analyse the lessons. 10. See yourself in others and others in you, thus minimising your predilection for judgment. So that's a wee introduction to shadow work. While the process most certainly sucks, done properly, the end results are nothing short of glorious. Furthermore, if you attempt to skip this stage of your healing, you will likely never know true happiness. Remember, during this process, do not judge yourself. To do so is to create yet more inner conflict. Knowing and owning the dark things you've done, even only to yourself, is massive healing work. Taking it that one step further, reaching out to those who were hurt by your words or deeds is epic. Despite having gone to great lengths to make amends to those I wounded, the brutal truth is that I hurt so many. Thanks to my own honed skills of repression, I cannot even remember them all. With that in mind, please indulge me as I sincerely apologise to anyone I injured during my first 40-odd year bumbling rampage. I couldn't meet your needs because I was emotionally miles behind, a wounded child without the life skills. I didn't listen to you because the roaring noise of my ego shut out anyone else's feelings other than mine. I didn't want to look at you because observing the unspeakable damage I caused filled me with shame. I couldn't let you get close because my heart was shored, secured, and perversely protected. I am unreservedly sorry for anyone whose heart I broke or whose feelings were injured through my words or deeds. The version of me they met was emotionally unskilled, a scared, angry, and wounded little boy. Even if he wanted to, he could not love. He couldn't even love himself, so you see, no one else had much of a chance. But we forgave ourselves, and we chose to change. Okie dokie, with all that said and done, let's dip a timely toe into the turgid pond of apprehension, otherwise known as fear.